Hello everyone, let's talk science. Today you're gonna see I've got two plants beside me. One of them looks beautiful, it's growing, it looks wonderful, and this one looks kind of like, well, it looks like a dead stick. Believe it or not, these two plants are the exact same kind of plant. They're both orchids. So what's the difference between the two? If I explain it to you, maybe you can figure it out. First of all, this plant is by the window in my kitchen. I open the window in the daytime and I close it at night. It's next to my sink, so it's got lots of time to get water every day. It's really easy to water it. Additionally, there's a lot of sunlight that comes through that window. Now this plant here is also by a window, but that window doesn't open. It has to stay closed all the time. Additionally, it's covered by trees, so there's not as much sunlight. And it's kind of hard to water, so I must admit that I didn't water it every day. So what's the difference between the two? Pause the video, write down your answer, and then come back. Did you figure it out? Well, if you said that the lack of sunlight is the reason these two plants look so different, well, you'd be right, because plants need sunlight in order to grow. But if you said that the lack of water has caused this plant to die, while plenty of water has caused this one to live, you're also correct, because all living things need water. Even still, if you said that the airflow from the window has an effect on the growth of this plant as opposed to this one where the window was closed, you're also correct. The air has carbon dioxide in it, which the plant needs to grow. But which one of these three things had the greatest effect on this plant right here? In this real-life situation, it's kind of hard to tell, but if we create a science experiment, we might be able to figure it out. And in order to create a science experiment, we need to know something about variables. A variable is anything which can be changed in an experiment or in a real-life situation. So for example, the amount of water is a variable, the sunlight is a variable because it can change, and the airflow is a variable because we can keep the window open or we can close it and that would change it. And so in my classroom, we often use the expression, change one thing and see what happens. Everything else should be the same, in order to explain the three types of variables you have to know. Let's try that again. Change one thing and see what happens. Everything else should be the same. And our change one thing variable is known as the independent variable. It's the one we're most curious about, the one we really want to know about. And it's called independent because it's by itself, it's alone, it's the only one thing that we change. In my case, for my experiment, I might want to change the amount of sunlight. So I'll have one plant that grows with regular sunlight and water and air, and another plant that gets the water and air, but no sunlight. The second part is see what happens. And see what happens is called the dependent variable because it depends on the first variable, the independent, right? And so see what happens is gonna be the thing that we see as a result of the first variable. For example, if I take this plant and I let it grow as usual, and then I take another plant and I don't give it any sunlight, the difference between the two is the dependent variable. It's the one that I see, and so I might see how much the plant grows or doesn't grow. That's my dependent variable. The last part of the expression is known as everything else should be the same. That's known as a controlled variable because it needs to be kept under control so it doesn't change the result of the dependent variable. So if I have two plants and one gets sunlight, the other one doesn't get sunlight, I should have the same amount of water and the same amount of airflow, the same temperature in the room, the same size of plant. You get the idea. Everything else needs to be the same because we're only changing one thing. Now my reflective question for you is, if I want to know how does water affect the growth of a plant, what should be my independent variable, my change one thing? And what will be my dependent variable, or what do I expect to see if I change that one thing for two plants? All right, good luck.